like I say, these projects run anywhere from $7 to $15 million. And the project manager ultimately is responsible to that. My project managers I've got a right-hand man, and they answer to him or me. That's all. And their assignment is to get them done on time, do everything we agreed to do in the contract, and make us some money. And as long as they're doing that, they don't get too much criticism from me. But if I go out there and I'm expecting to see electricians and they're not there, and he says, well, I'm arguing with them about whether they ought to have 5 or 6, and they're not going to put any on here until we decide. Well, maybe the decision should have been to replace the electrician, because I'm willing to hear them out, but ultimately the general contractor gets to decide. And and it's hard when you're real young because you're not knowledgeable. You get this great technical education here, and once you go to work, you're going to use some parts of it every day of your life till you retire. And some of it, Dr. Wabi and I were just sitting downstairs talking about history. We both had history classes in school, and it's really enjoyable, especially with him, to talk about the pyramids. But it really hadn't got anything to do with our work. So your degree is a real ticket to learn, to be valuable to some employer, me or anybody else. And I'm a great advocate of small companies. I never had that desire to try to climb the corporate ladder, and a lot of that just has to do with his background of growing up in Oakland and not being real comfortable around big cities and stuff. The hardest thing to control, basically it's the schedule, and there's a lot of things that affect that. It's getting the right number of men there. It's the block supplier didn't get you the blocks when he was supposed to. The rebar shortage because the Chinese are buying all of it. There's all these things, we can control quality pretty good because we hire good subcontractors, and then we monitor what they're doing. But you're sort of at the mercy of some of these suppliers. I told the earlier class, one thing, and Walmart's a victim of that too. So what they've done, they weren't getting bar joists when they wanted them. They bought Volcraft, biggest bar joist manufacturer in the world. They weren't getting floor tile when they wanted it. They bought one of the big tile companies. They just, and of course, nobody else can do that. Them and Microsoft maybe, but they just won't tolerate it, and they won't tolerate it from us. Get it done on time, and which really kind of boils down to just the ethics you learn here in the Midwest. Do what you said you were going to do. We use sort of a loose critical path method. We have what we call milestone dates. We use them as a kind of a drop dead date. We're always trying to beat them. There's certain things that time of year has a lot to do with. We may switch the sequence of something that can be switched so that we can start growing grass, not in December, try and get it started in October or something. But schedule is probably the toughest thing to monitor.
How would the weather interfere with your schedule? Weather is
Yeah, no, we have no control over it. It used to frustrate me. It doesn't anymore. What happens is if you lose a week because of wet weather, then you've got to do something. The end date never changes. So it means going from 5 days to 6 days and going from 8-hour days to 10-hour days or whatever. Because we take those completion dates dead serious, as does Walmart. And there's a lot of reasons for that. They schedule the delivery of the goods, initial goods to that store 18 months in advance. Trucks are loaded. Got to be done. So We had Aaron and Brian want to know key differences. Seems to me about every 3 years Walmart, they evolve these stores. Occasionally we'll go in a metropolitan area. For example, we did one in a very nice section of Louisville, Kentucky a couple years ago. It's the fanciest one we ever built because the city fathers and demanded something prettier than this one. The little stores in the front of them, the optical shop or the photo shop or whatever, dry cleaner, those are different every time. And sometimes we change them twice. I have actually changed them twice during the construction because some marketing guy said, oh no, there's no optometrist there in that town. Let's get an optical shop. Or there's no dry cleaner. Forget the optical shop. Let's make a dry cleaner out of it. I mean, this happens. The little side issues, those are all leased spaces, by the way. They don't own that. But generally, they're left hand, right hand for some period of time, and then they'll have a big change, and we sort of have to relearn. But the big changes are usually just in appearance. Square footages have been the same for, 5, 6, 7 years. Their big stores, 225,000 square feet. The site is always different. I mean, we've built them on hillsides where we had to blast rock away. We've built them in holes where we had to fill up the hole, and they don't. We always accuse them of buying the worst site within 50 miles of where they wanted. But
as a general contractor, you are responsible for the soil mechanics side of things, or just do whatever you do?
We do what the plans say. Walmart has the whole team, if you will, that builds these. They've got a few architects. We see 4 or 5, but I suppose maybe they've got 50 maybe around the country. They'll select one of those. They design the building. They hire a civil engineer who designs the site. They'll hire a soils engineer to test it, come up with a recommended procedures for the soil. If you got bad soil, you got to lime stabilize it or put fly ash in it or something like that. And then a general contractor. So there's really several organizations involved. But once it starts, we never have any contact with the architect again. Occasionally we have contact with the civil engineer if we run into something that wasn't disclosed in the soils test, which happens, But basically it's just us and the Walmart representative. Well, there's another question about the biggest challenge, and I mean it's schedule. That's the thing we've got to watch all the time. There are issues that are very difficult. Again, I told the other class, Walmart's very concerned about safety. They're very concerned about illegal immigrants. They've been in trouble with the government 2 or 3 times over it already. So we have to monitor that kind of stuff. But the big hot button for them is stormwater pollution, which is sediment that gets off a job site, or you spill a bucket of paint and it gets into the water source. We kind of had a joke about this morning, but like the little Jiffy Johns that you put out there on the construction site, we now have to put those in a little tray so that if there's a spill, it doesn't get away. So, and the littlest things that you would hardly think of, we no longer allow. If there's a bulldozer out there, he's got to drive off-site, put fuel in it, because we don't want to risk spilling diesel fuel on the ground. I mean, it's difficult. And that's not to mention the actual erosion problem of when you strip the soil and it starts raining and it's going to create gullies. But we do all kinds of things to control that. to the tune of $300,000 to $400,000 on each one of these stores. That's what we spend on pollution control. I've got every guy in my company, a couple of the gals, have every year I go myself. Walmart has a stormwater professional training program that you've got to go through every year, and we make out a daily report on the job site that everything's okay, or we had this problem, and we report that, and we have to report on ourselves, and then we have 48 hours to fix it, and then we've got to report that we fixed it. It's just, and you don't dare sit at home and write it out like you were there and get caught. Walmart considers that fraud. It's justification to cancel your contract.